Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I'm so happy you're all here. As always, it's a pleasure to be in our spaces together and to celebrate each other, to learn together, to grow together, to love with each other, and to experience the world and each other and our lives and all that stuff. So we have a wonderful show in store. You know, I always say that, but we do, and we have a beautiful story. So I really looking forward to getting to it. But before we do, I want to say hi to Amnon.
Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
I'm good, Amnon. How are you?
I find,
You're busy over there, huh?
well, I'm okay.
You're okay. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome.
You had a good weekend?
I did.
Good.
I did. I spent a lot of good time with my children, my grandchildren, and I think I told you all last week, right? That my daughter and my son-in-law and my two grandchildren moved in for a couple of weeks between houses, and we have a very small condo, and we have been such good roommates. I go do the grocery shopping, my daughter's done the cooking, and then my husband cleans up. How much better can you get than that? And this morning, my grandson was so cute at 4 years old. He said, Grandma, because they're moving out today, he said, Grandma, you going to come to our new house? And I said, yeah. He said, we have a lot of bedrooms. He says, and we have a guest bedroom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was wonderful. I think everyone should have an opportunity to live and spend time with their immediate family. And I mean parents, elderly parents, young parents, sisters, brothers, children, grandchildren. We all should experience that because it has revolutionized my relationship with my daughter, my grandchildren, and my son-in-law, and even my other children. Because when you open up that love, what can you do? So anyway, I want to welcome all of you. I want to thank you all for being here. Remember, you can join us anytime you want in our chat. Just put your name under the video and ask questions, comment, whatever you like there. You can call in to 919-518-9773, and you can come in on Skype, and that's going to be voice, not video. So come in there, computers, and that's plural, then the number 2K voice. And happy Father's Day to all of you out there who are fathers, uncles, whomever who have celebrated yesterday. You can say it to me too, because I celebrated. All right. Here's my friend Tracy.
Hello.
Tracy
Hi,
Beerman.
Hi. Thank you.
We love each other.
We do.
We do. It's like a sister act. And Tracy is here. And this is like almost like your first time of doing something like this, right?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
But she has shared bits and pieces of her story. And it's a story that timing is, you know how you hear timing is almost everything. And it just came up that this would be a really good show for today. And it is perfect because the more we chat, the more we realize that how the story has even evolved after Father's Day and all that stuff. So, and we have not talked much about this because every time we start, I say, no, let's save this for you, my friends out there. So, should we go backwards a little bit?
Sure.
Like you want to, like yesterday.
We could start with yesterday and then go back.
Yes, I think that would be a really good idea.
Okay, great.
So tell us about yesterday.
So yesterday I spent Father's Day. We took my father out for breakfast, me and my kids, my husband, and my mother. My parents have been divorced 35, 40 years, something like that. And so we all had breakfast together and celebrated Father's Day. It was the first time that I have been with my father since I was a kid on Father's Day. So, and I didn't realize it at the time, but later in the day after I was, back home, I realized, wow, that was the first time since I was a kid.
So you didn't realize it?
I didn't realize it. No, I didn't realize it. And, but it was beautiful. And it's been an evolution in our relationship. And my mother was there too, which was also a complete. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, and they're doing well side by side. But it was a nice celebration. Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's never too late.
No.
To parent. It's never too late to be a kid. It's just never too late. Maybe. I don't think.
I don't think it's ever too late.
It's never too late, is it? to enjoy each other's company. So that must have been interesting. Was that the first time your parents have been together too?
No, they've been together. They both came to my sister's wedding, which was 20 years ago,
Oh, that's a long time ago.
and my wedding, which was 20 years ago in April. Um, and then my dad just moved to Raleigh from upstate New York, from Syracuse, in September. So, and this is the first time I've lived in the same city with my father since I was 22, right out of college. I moved away. So they haven't really, they've had a lot of opportunities in the past, how many months is that? 9 months, to be together and to be, they're
Cordial.
sharing meals and things like that. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
yesterday I was just telling Tracy and that we had a first.
Mhm.
That my children are grown and they were bringing brunch to their dad and with their sisters. They have two other sisters that their father had, and their father invited my husband and I, to come and celebrate Father's Day, Grandpa Day, and I just didn't. I didn't. It didn't take me a second to say yes.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
second when you have that opportunity. Just whatever. There's no yuck there.
Yeah.
You just go past. So, what brought your dad back here after all those years?
So, well, he's always lived in upstate New York.
Always.
And
So he's never
always.
lived here, really.
He's not ever moved from I think in the past 50 years, at least 55 years, maybe, he hadn't moved any further than 3 miles.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
haven't been together, right?
We haven't. No, we haven't. We haven't lived in the same city since I left.
So
town.
how long between now and, had you seen him through the years or you weren't even seeing him?
So maybe this is a point to back up.
Okay.
To back up to when I was a child. And it's so interesting when you are open and accepting of whatever comes your way and new understandings of things and realizations. My memories of my dad when we were kids was that he wasn't around. And, but that every 2 years we would go on a fantastic trip. We would go, he'd always plan a trip where we went to the beach part-time and we went to an amusement park part-time, every 2 years. And those are my beautiful, amazing, those are my heart. But those were the times when I got to be with my dad. And then I didn't find out until recently that the reason I wasn't with my dad was because he was working. I guess I didn't really even realize that he really wasn't
working.
There.
Right.
He worked the night shift. So I didn't have a relationship with dad. My parents divorced when I was 17. And, at that point, my sister and I were kind of, we were put in a situation where we had to get to know this man that we didn't know, except every 2 years when we went on vacations. And it was really strange when we were teenage girls, and it kind of fell on in my lap that I was responsible for getting us together, and it was difficult. When I turned, and it didn't go well. It was very uncomfortable, and I kind of, as soon as I went to college, I kind of,
Where was your mother in all of this? Was she? What was the role she played?
So I really believe she was in kind of survival mode through most of my childhood.
They were married then.
They were married.
But he
Yep.
just traveled for a living.
He was working, not 15, 20 minutes away, but he wasn't really a part of our life, at least in my memory. I don't remember what I longed for as an adult, let's say. So when I was 22, I was just getting ready to move to Atlanta. I was leaving New York State and moving to Atlanta to branch out and be an adult. And right before I left, I met this woman that my dad was with, and shortly after that, they married. And for the next 26 years, she acted as if my sister and I did not exist. She had kids, she had grandchildren eventually, and her kids and her grandchildren were all, yeah, it was one of those interesting places.
Let's clear it up a little.
Mhm.
So you're growing up, your dad's working, but he's not really living at the house.
He's living there.
But your memory,
My memory is,
why do you, what was it about blocking it out? Do you think you blocked it out?
Well, when recently he told me, I said, "Oh, well, you don't remember when in middle school and high school," and he said, "No, I don't. I wasn't there."
So he
So
acknowledged.
he confirmed that, okay, it wasn't just a coping mechanism or a trying to make sense of it. It was that he
It's
wasn't
interesting,
there.
it's because we got to kind of ask these questions when we have an opportunity, because you
Yeah.
can make up all kinds of things.
Oh, and I
right?
did for
And we
most
do.
of my life.
Yeah, we make up all kinds of things when, what do you know?
Right.
And then you ask and you get clarified.
Yeah.
The answer is clarified.
Yeah.
So so he marries this woman. Do you remember the divorce and what that
I
was?
do. I remember very clearly. I can bring all the emotion up in my body and in my mind.
You really loved him. I mean,
I did, and I
too?
longed for that. And I didn't really have any examples of a father-daughter relationship when I was growing up, really not at all. But I really longed for that closeness of, I needed him.
And I think it's somewhat sometimes an obvious thing that we yearn for these relationships,
Yeah.
for these ties, for these connections, and we don't know we're yearning. We don't know what that is.
Mhm.
We don't honor them sometimes. We just, kind of push them under the rug or make believe they don't exist at all or whatever we do with them,
Yeah.
as opposed to acknowledging the fact of their existence and that why wouldn't they exist?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why shouldn't they exist?
And I, for many years, I told this story to myself that I wasn't worthy of his love. That was, I wasn't worthy of his love, and I wasn't worthy. There was this abandonment these feelings of abandonment that I never really had him, but there were these feelings of that I was left, that I was
Yeah, well,
left
it's
behind.
a natural thing to want to be connected to your parent.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that natural bond. And I want to share with you all out there that, this is kind of like the first time Tracy has shared this kind of like openly in this way.
Cat phone is saying, did I hear Tracy say Binghamton?
Syracuse. Yes.
Syracuse.
Uh-huh. Hi, Kat.
So, this is the first time you're sharing this. So
Yeah.
this is a really thank you. And this is a cool moment.
And thank you
Well,
for the opportunity to share it.
Well, how many of you out there have a similar story
Mm-hmm.
or something that you shoved under the rug or you thought wasn't natural, but how can they not be? How
Yeah.
can these connections and love not be natural in any way, shape, or form?
Right.
So you go to college and your father marries this woman.
When
that was a shock.
when I moved to Atlanta, yeah, my
So that
father
was even more of a shock.
Yeah, and it was even more of a shock to find out that I was told after they got married. I called my dad and he said, "Oh yeah, just want to let you know that we got married." Oh, so again, more stories that I'm telling myself about that. What is it with me? Why doesn't my dad want to be with me? And what is it about me that this woman does not want me to be a part of my father's life?
And you know that because he told you that? Did he tell you she didn't want you apart, or how did you find that
No,
out?
that was my own story. Now, recently when we've talked, he said he told me that she was very, very jealous of you and your sister. She really, yeah, and he flat out told me. I mean, these are things you kind of know about people. But she really did not. And there was no, I met her for this much time. I met her for an afternoon for a lunch. There was no, and it really, as I went through those 26 years, they were together for 26 years. As I went through those 26 years, I realized that, oh, it's not me. Of course, I had to keep reminding myself that over and over again. It's her and her insecurity about that. I don't really know because I'm not her, but that my dad had a life before her, or that we were going to try to take anything that her kids had. I really can't speak for her. I don't understand, but but now I understand.
So
It was
you
all
were
about
right.
fear.
So you did get the feeling that she didn't want you, and he verified it.
Recently, now
Yeah.
while she was alive for 26 years, he would say, "Oh, I really, you really should reach out to her. You really should. She's had a difficult life." And I'm thinking, and so have I.
How many
Really?
times do we say make excuses for people like that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but also but I kind of know this too, and I know you do too,
hmm
that so it takes the bigger person sometimes, or the person whose heart is more open, right,
Yeah.
to reach out to somebody, to keep reaching out sometimes, because eventually, in a lot of cases, they reach back
Right. Right.
when you don't give them a chance to not love you, right?
Yeah. Now I did not I would send her little gifts and little thoughtful gifts. I think she
So you
sent me
did
some
do that.
socks for Christmas one time. That was once. That was about the extent of it. But I did, and then I finally just threw up my hands, and it's this energy. I'm not going to get.
Right.
It's not the outcome that I want. Is not. Um, yeah,
And then and during this time, did he reach out to you, or he was
not
quiet?
much. So she was home all the time. So if I wanted to speak to my dad, it was always censored. So she would answer the phone and she would sit. I could imagine her sitting right at the
So it's
kitchen
just
table. I could never really talk to my dad.
so
My,
that you felt that you knew that
oh
that was
yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah. My sister and I would, every couple of years, if we bought him a ticket and made the arrangements, then we could get him to come to us. Not always willingly, a lot of times with lots of excuses of, I can't do that. But yeah, the reaching out, my dad didn't do a whole lot of reaching out.
Mhm. So how did this affect you?
To lots of years in the therapist chair, lots of talking. There was a period of time, and it was right. It was maybe 5 years in when I realized it was 'cause I was 22. I
Yeah,
was
you're
still
old enough
young.
to know though, but you're old enough to feel that loss.
Yeah, I
You
definitely
know,
felt the loss and lots of time in the therapist chair. And there was a time at the beginning when I first started going into therapy that I couldn't even say dad without bawling. And, I came a long way in all of those years in the therapist chair.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you can't deny those feelings, and you're old enough to know what you're missing. Not maybe what you're missing, but that you're missing somebody.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
loss. There's a yearning. There's a mourning.
Yeah.
I
There
mean,
was
when there's a mourning.
well, and then it would kind of, when he married this woman, it sealed the deal on that's it. There's no relationship here. There's not any, I can't get close to this man who's sitting where she's talking talking to me through him on the phone. I mean, that was every time I called or my son. Then there came a point where I'd call and then I would go maybe 6 months or a year and not.
And he wouldn't call either.
No, not occasionally if there was something going on with a family member or
Mhm.
something, but yeah, it was, and my dad wanted to be loved. I know that, I mean, and that's where he was that was his way.
Yeah, a lot of times we mistake love for other things, or other things we mistake for love,
Right.
don't we?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that was, but
Well,
on looking
control,
back.
I mean, control. If you are yearning for love, I mean, you can't make this up, but if you're yearning for love, control, if somebody says, I'm here for you, don't do that, I'm taking care of you, I'm watching over you, I care about you, I don't want you to get hurt or whatever. I mean, it
Mhm.
can feel like love to somebody, just like an ego can.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are loved by their ego and their ego tells them, "Oh, don't do that because you're going to get hurt. Or don't do that." That
Right.
feels like love, right?
Right.
That feels like protection.
Mhm.
That feels like, I'm being, I can't do that. Well, look at it in terms of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes a difference if a person's telling you that. You get a lot of mixed messages. And I wonder, and I don't know, is it men and women combined equally that take on that does a man leave a child easier than a woman does if they have that love partner?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess
Mhm.
it depends on the person
Yeah,
and the background and the experiences that they've had.
yeah. So a lot of years of therapy
Yeah, lots of years of therapy. Yeah.
to find out what.
To keep digging back into that old stuff, and the therapy was great and I needed it. But then there came a point where I just needed to go forward and stop going back into all the pain, the painful stuff, and what can I do to go forward?
So what did you do?
So I had my children. She never met my children. She never met my sister's children. She didn't come to either one of our weddings, never came to visit either one of our homes in 26 years.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And so I had my children, and, I have a wise old soul as my oldest son. And he was exhibiting my feelings. I didn't even have to say anything. I I believe I'm a good mother, but he was feeling these things within me, I believe. And he was acting out, and he was having, at 3 years old, self-loathing and pessimism and
Was that you?
negativity.
That was you.
Yeah, that's how I was feeling inside.
So what did you? Okay, so you saw you in him.
I saw me in him. And that was, so I had done all of this forgiveness work and all of this work and being in the therapist chair and all of that over many of those years. Then I had my own children, and I saw this in him. And that's when I decided, okay, I've got to do something different, because what I'm doing is not working, and I'm going to have to do this for my kids.
Do you recall being like experiencing the self-loathing and how that
Oh,
manifested?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine you doing that today, and I can't imagine you being mean to somebody, or I can't even
I would
imagine.
not mean to others, but mean to myself.
And what did you do to be mean to yourself? Because I
I
can't even imagine you being mean to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, just making poor choices for
Okay.
many of those years, and drinking and drugging, and men always seeking love and not beautiful ways, and just continually telling myself, not in those words, but that I'm not worthy of love or being happy, joyful.
I think it's also curious to me how that becomes the result of
Mhm.
that self-loathing.
Yeah.
The men, the drugs, the drinking. I mean, it happens for many of us. I mean, God knows. I should switch chairs.
I'll interview you.
I mean, I have mine too. I mean, I'm like, when I look back sometimes into my what I didn't even know. I'm sure I don't even know if you call that self-loathing,
Mhm.
well, what you call it, but I often look back and think I would have hair on my chest today just thinking about the things that I did
Yes. Mhm.
to become somebody who said maybe it's more about what we say no to. You know what I mean? That you get to a point where
Right.
you say where you are strong, where you push yourself so far into that stuff
Mhm.
that you come to a point where you say no, and then you can begin to say yes.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, because I was saying, and I had lots of excuses why I couldn't enjoy this or that or the other thing, and it was, yeah, it was all in the way I was thinking about myself.
Mhm.
And it was destructive in it. And obviously I was seeing it in, and my son he is this, he's an old soul. We say that he was born 40, and that he, ever since he was a little guy, he's very, very highly sensitive, and I didn't have to say anything. He was just getting it from me. And that was so painful. That, okay, I can't, you can run, but you can't hide. Like, there you are, you're always there. And
How
my
old
son
was he?
he was 3.
Can you imagine a
No, it
3-year-old
was awful.
being able to pick up on your self-loathing
hmm
by
It
whatever?
it was devastating.
It was devastating.
Yeah. How do you, yeah, you thought the thought of how can a 3-year-old know this much about life or about himself? And he was picking it up.
So what did you do?
So I got really serious. Okay, what I've been doing up to till now has not been working. So I really opened myself up on my knees, and really started doing some major forgiveness work,
So you were
more than I
married
had.
then. You were married
I
then.
was married.
So
Yeah,
drugs, men, all that stuff
that was before. That was before I
before.
got married.
So
Yeah.
you did
Well,
all that.
the drinking kind of continued, but yeah, that was before I
Okay,
got
so
married.
you do that, then you get married, but you're still drinking,
Still drinking.
and
Yeah.
and then you start having children.
Yeah.
But you're still in the self-loathing.
Yeah. 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 So I made a decision that and I opened myself up. I prayed, um, show me the way. I know that there's a way. I don't know how I knew that there was a way. I had to change my thinking about myself. And
But you don't know the way.
no, I didn't know the way.
See, this is
Mm-mm.
very important. I want you all to hear this. Sometimes you have to say yes to something and you don't know the way. You just
Yeah.
know it's not the way you've been going.
Right. Yes. It was not, that was not the way. And so I opened myself up to, okay, well, what I started doing was pulling my life apart, moving everybody's cheese, upsetting everybody in my life. My husband, definitely.
What do you mean?
My kids.
Upsetting them.
Saying this is not working for me. It's going to have to be different. And really putting my foot down, setting boundaries, because I didn't have boundaries before that. I was kind of a wide open, let things happen to me. And, if I had to set some.
Why are boundaries an indication of strength or of healing or of making the better choices? Why are boundaries? What is the expression of a boundary?
So for me, I had to teach people how to treat me. I had to teach, and kind of let go of the relationships and the things in my life that were not working. So what I did was I pulled everything apart, and I didn't know how to put it back together again. And, once you pull it apart, you can't put it back in the box. You can't, there were times like, oh my gosh, I would just wish I hadn't done this, but it was the
Can you give
path.
an example of what you're talking about? Like, what did you pull out that then you looked at and said, now how do I put it back together, or put it back together, or put it back together differently?
So my marriage is one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, the saying, this is not working for me. I know that we've been doing this for all of these years, and this is not, hear me loud and clear, this is not working for me. And that it just created a lot more in our relationship. And I had just had all of these boxes open, it felt like, and didn't know how to put it all back together. And then I met my coach. Susan, and she helped me. She was what I'd been praying for. And she taught me to, instead of, I like to say that I lived life, Groundhog Day, like every day I just kept getting what I was getting. Cause I didn't reset. I didn't decide what I wanted. Or that whack-a-mole, the game at the fair where you're whacking the mole and it hops up over here and you whack it down, kind of living your life like that.
The same thing over and over and over.
The same thing over and over. And okay, here it comes, and kind of knocking it down. And then she had me write a vision for what I wanted in my life rather than what I didn't want. And I wrote, I want to travel with my dad. So that was the extent of my vision with my dad. I want us to travel together as a family. That was my first vision. I want to travel with my
And
dad.
nobody says you can't have a million and one boards either, or
Right.
visions.
Yeah. And at the time, there was no way and no how that that was going to happen. There was no way. But I knew that I needed that for me. I needed that for my kids. I needed my kids I needed it for me. I needed a relationship with my dad. That's what I
Well,
wanted.
well, it sounds like you wanted that acknowledgement
Yeah,
that that was a possibility,
it was.
and that's very important.
Hmm.
I mean, we can say we want to make $1 million in 6 months, but maybe you'll make 800,000. But if you don't say a million, you're not going to make the 800,000,
Right.
right? So
Right.
you need something to ground you into yes. And before we go on, not I just again 919-518-9773. Please feel free to call in or come in at computers 2K voice on Skype voice. It will not be video. And then you can certainly join us in our chat. Just put your name, nickname, whatever you like. And it's busy in there. So please put your name in there, come in there, share with us. And I'm not has something to
I,
say.
I was just going to say, you said you had to teach people how to treat you.
I did.
Is it not more like you had to teach people how to not treat you anymore like that?
Yes. Yes. Both ways. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Um, yeah, I had to do that with my husband and friends, and I was one who would say yes to all these things that I didn't necessarily want to do. So I had to learn how to say no. I actually was in a group setting my husband and I were in marriage counseling, and still are. But I mean, I think everybody should be in marriage counseling. But we were in a group setting, and the therapist had me go around to 8 people and say and stand right in front of them and say no. No. And it was a weird thing for me to do, but I needed to do that. And that really stands out as like, because he would say, what's the worst thing that could happen if you say no? Well, I don't know.
Right.
And so he had me do this exercise, but that's exactly it. I had to teach people how I wanted to be treated and how I didn't want to be treated, how I like to be, and about triggers, things about, with my husband, about, okay, well, this brings me right back to being at the kitchen table with my parents. And this is not, you don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. And when you say this or when this happens, this is where I go. So just learning how to,
And it's a dance.
it's a
It's
dance.
not like you just say no, 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 or yes, 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 yes. It's a dance. Sometimes the no gives you permission for the yes, and then what's next is yes gives you permission for the no. It's just back and forth, and
Right.
it's a step forward, a toe step forward, a
It
little
is
back. It's back.
continually a process. Relationships are all that I have learned in the past 5-6 years since I decided what I wanted.
But learning
Hmm.
about life inside of relationships.
Hmm.
What do you think about that? Isn't that just the best thing ever?
It is. And we learn things. But I think the greatest thing is like what I mentioned earlier is that I've learned things about my childhood that I had made up in my mind. There were also things that I learned that I was correct about. But learning that that there are different sides. Why my dad chose to do this and why or marry this woman and cut me off. But also kind of the truth that my mother would always tell me, your dad always loved you. He always went to
She
the
did tell
softball
you that.
games. Yeah, she would tell me that continually. In my mind, he didn't. Well, if he did, I had my own ideas of what love was. If he loved me, then he would reach out to me, that he would want to be with me. He would want to get to know his grandchildren. And he did. I know that now.
He did what?
Want to know me. He wanted to know his grandchildren. He knows his grandchildren now.
So in his heart of hearts,
In his heart of hearts, he
he's
did.
here now,
He's here now.
and he is, and in his heart of hearts, it's there. He
Mhm.
wanted to, and I think that's also why we want to hold forgiveness so
Oh my
big.
gosh, the forgiveness. It was huge.
It's
And I will
huge.
tell you, if we have just a few minutes, and I want to tell
Yeah.
you this really.
We have more than a few minutes, don't
Okay.
we?
Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes, yes, yes.
So there was this so I told you I decided what I wanted. I want to have a relationship with my father. I want for all of us to go on a trip together. No way,
Get
no
right on.
how. I had asked, and I had asked him, could we do this? Could we? And no, at
This
the
is when
point,
he was still married.
this is when this
Okay.
was 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
I'm still working with my coach at this point. I get a call and his wife passed away. I had never imagined that she would go first. I never imagined, and not that I mean, I never wished ill on her. I did wish that she wasn't in my dad's life, but I never,
Right.
but just didn't, it wasn't in my awareness that it could possibly be. So, and I will tell you, if I had not done all of that forgiveness work, there is no way I could have gotten on a plane and gone up to be there with him and clean up the mess that she had made in his life. That is a talk for another time, but I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I did a lot of forgiveness around her. And I started, we talked about this on Friday. Back, I was 22 when my dad married this woman, and
And you're how old now?
53.
So it's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
It was in 1992, seemed like everything just blew up, and I was on my knees. I was ill. I wasn't getting better, and I was
Physically,
full.
you mean?
Physically, I had chronic. I kept getting sick over. I'd be on antibiotics, off antibiotics. I was just to the point where I had to sit up in bed. I didn't have family around me. It was I was that was on my knees right there. And so I picked up the book A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And she talks a lot about relationships. She talks a lot about forgiveness.
Yes, she does.
And that's where it began with me. And something I didn't realize. So, A Return to Love is based on the book A Course in Miracles. And it wasn't until I was working with my coach Susan that that there's a it's written in little pieces. It says something about we are all asking for or expressing love all the time. We are love. We're always asking for or expressing love, and no matter how unskillful it may seem, and that unskillful, oh my gosh, it was like a light bulb went off. Okay, it's not dad that's
It's not that he didn't want to love you. He was unskilled at how.
yes, he was unskilled at
It's
how,
very
and so
important.
was she.
Very, very
And
important.
so I did a lot of,
Very important.
I didn't want to spend time with her, but
Well-
I did a lot of forgiveness around her and around him, and I was able to be with him during that period of time.
You know, it's interesting because when I was talking to you on Friday,
hmm
and I said, let's call it A Return to Love, I had no idea that was the book that was Tracy's Bible.
Almost wants to make me cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no clue. It
That
just
was
came up.
that was my Bible. That's what got me through the really seriously on my knees. And I don't know where else to go from here.
She says in that book, you can love from a distance.
hmm
If you can forgive, and you can forgive from a distance, and you can love from a distance.
Right.
You do not have to like be in somebody's company if you're, but you can forgive. I mean, forgive is big.
It is.
Wayne Dyer, Wayne
Yeah,
Dyer.
I do.
He said he's died, but he had a very awful, awful relationship with his father.
Yeah.
And at his father's grave, he came up with forgiveness, and he said, if you don't forgive, you might as well dig two graves.
Yeah.
Yours and the person you don't forgive.
Right.
So forgiveness is huge. And being unskilled, I mean, what do we know?
I
We're
know.
doing the best we can, but if we realize that we are stepping over ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, there's a book called Broken Open. Have you ever heard
Elizabeth
Um,
Lesser? Elizabeth
Lesser?
Lesser. Yeah.
She
Mhm.
from the Omega Institute.
Yeah. Mhm.
She says we're all bozos on the bus. We're all bozos on the bus.
Right.
We are learning and growing, and well, hope doing the best we can in this unskillful thing called love.
Yeah.
We think it's so easy. It should be easy, but what do we know? How do we know what to give? How do we know what to receive? People say, "Well, I didn't want to bother you, so I didn't call you." And I'm like, "How could you bother anybody when you're just reaching out and loving them?"
Right. Right.
So don't hold back.
Mhm.
Come into the love space, come into whatever love can look like, and just go from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what else can you
And
do?
believe in love, because that's what we are. That's who we are. We're love.
So you have made like your day yesterday. So you went we started with yesterday, right? With Tracy, and
Yeah.
we've gone around the universe,
Yep.
right? We've gone from there all the way into the back, and now we're coming back again in a way
Mhm.
where you have believed in love.
Mhm.
Some you held, I mean, and maybe that's why the self-loathing too, because you believe in love.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't analyze it, but you held on to the love with your father. You went the route of forgiveness, and then here you are. Your parents are in the same at the
They're in the
same
same
table
city.
breaking bread together.
Yeah.
And you're celebrating Father's Day.
Yeah. It's so Dad called me July of last year, so it's been almost a year. And he said, "Well, Trace, I think this is going to be my
I'm gonna
last."
start to cry.
I know.
I just got this. Oof,
He said, "I think this is going to be my last winter in Syracuse.
it was big of him.
I want to come and be with you."
That's big.
That was almost a
That's
year
a
ago.
big thing for somebody to do.
It was. He's 80. He turned 80 in November. Yeah.
So he really like he is showing his love.
Yes.
He always loved you,
He's
and now
show-
he's really showing it.
Right. And now he's showing it. And so I said, "Well, Dad, of course, why do we need to wait? Why do you need to wait another winter? Why don't we do it now? Why don't we get that house on the market before winter? You don't have to do another Syracuse winter." Oh my goodness.
So what is it? So I know that he's had some illnesses, and he
Mhm.
hasn't been, up to his par, whatever
Yeah.
that might look like.
Par, that's funny because we're trying to get him on the golf course.
Okay.
That's his
Well,
goal.
you've been there to help him. What's it been like
Yeah.
for you to be helping to take care of him?
So it's interesting. We haven't lived in the same city since, well, we haven't lived in the same city in many, many, many years. What, 30 years, 30 plus years. So we're learning each other.
Yeah.
And he moved in September. So the same week that he moved, my father-in-law ended up getting very sick. So we had four parents who hadn't lived. They'd lived other places. In the past 6 years, we had four parents move to Raleigh. And which is another, as I started visioning more, I'm like, oh, well, all of us are here. Why wouldn't we all be here? So we got Dad moved here in September, got his house sold in January, which was my sister lives in Denver. I live here. So it was a lot getting a house. He'd been living in it for 30 years. Got the house sold in January, and I swear it was that week we found out that he had to have a open heart surgery. So it's been an interesting kind of roller coaster, not having him in my life, and then completely in my life, completely everything. So I was the person, I was the caregiver. And there were a lot of lots of feelings through all of that. But when it comes down to it, I see him at my kitchen table and I just think, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But I decided that that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted in my life, is to have my dad. It's and at the end of his life too, which is really beautiful. So we're in the process of he's still in cardiac rehab right now. It went beautifully. and lots of feelings. And yeah, it was really, the surgery itself was easy. It's the recovery. That's the tough part.
Yes.
But so we got him driving. Now he's driving himself to rehab, and getting on the golf course. That's the next step, and that will be in a couple of
And
weeks.
does he share with you now how he's feeling about being here? And
He does.
what does he say?
He feels really awful about everything, and I know, Dad, I know, and but let's go forward. You're here. You have an opportunity to know your grandchildren. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, now I was thinking about I mean, not rehashing.
Hmm.
I was more curious about, what does he say about going forward, about being here and going forward, and just sharing. Is he expressive?
More breakfasts. Let's have more
Is
breakfasts.
that what he
He's
says?
not super expressive.
So is that so? You have to show him how to be expressive.
Yeah, yeah, and he is, especially, he's learning. We're both learning.
So what has this been like for your children? Like your son now that once you noticed
Hmm.
what was happening with your son and you shifted, and that was a pretty cool shift.
Yeah,
How do you see him now? And then you have a daughter
right.
now with your father. So give us a little update.
So Grandpa Steve is a regular part of. It's not a unusual. They didn't know him before, and they know him now, and he's a regular part of our life. And the kids will, every once in a while, we'll go over and take his little dog for a walk, and Katie will walk him, Matthew will walk her, um, and my kids get to see me not only caring for my dad during illness, but making plans for going forward, to going up. We're talking about going up to New York to see his family, my
So
family.
so had you been in touch with that side of your family
We
those
had,
years? Okay.
I had. He he cut off everybody, so it
Mhm.
wasn't just me.
So
So
wow,
I was talking to my aunts.
that's a big deal.
It was a big
That's
deal.
a big
So
deal.
now everybody's reunited. Um, and my cousin and her husband, they've been, now every time they go down to Florida, they 6 months in Florida, 6 months in New York, and now they're stopping and staying with Dad, and it's kind of it's a regular thing.
And
It's a
you can
really
sit
beautiful
there
thing.
and you've you've been like in some cases like a pawn in a good way. You help move the energy, the love for
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
would you say?
yeah. I mean,
Takes a lot
yes,
of work.
it does. It continues to take a lot of work. And even yesterday, he said something. I was like, "Ooh, bad," like that little triggers. And oh, okay, it's all good. Nope, I'm not a kid
So your
anymore.
mom was right.
My mom was right
About what?
that he loved me.
Yeah.
She was right, and yeah, and she continued to.
It's very important.
It is very important, and she continued to tell me. But and even through the deepest, darkest times, that he loves you.
It was
He
very
just
good of
doesn't
her.
know how. And the unskillful part, oh my gosh, that was mind blowing. Oh, he's just unskillful. It's
Mhm.
not, separating the being from the behavior.
So important.
Huge.
You know what? I've been divorced for a long time, and my children were young. They don't. I mean, this also makes me sad.
Yeah.
They have no recollection hardly. Jamie, my oldest, who's going to be 38, a little bit,
Hmm.
but my daughter Dara has very little memory of her father and her mother being together.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I always, said nice things about him,
Hmm.
you know, and his family. And my children had a good relationship with their grandparents. And when my parents would come here, even after we were divorced, my mother and my mother-in-law would get together. They'd have
Hmm.
lunch. My father liked my father-in-law a lot. They would get together. We always kept it nice.
Yeah.
It's very important. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, same thing happened. I mean, I don't have any this kind of situations happening in my life, but
Yeah.
driving, and you're driving behind somebody who's just, and you can't
Yeah.
help but getting mad, right?
Hmm.
Come on,
Right.
And I started, every time this happens, I always say, it's probably somebody, a new driver, and they just don't know how to.
It's
And right
exactly.
Right.
It's
away,
a good point on
And it
that.
just
yeah,
goes,
It's a
right?
good
it goes
point.
Oh,
away.
right, right.
Right.
And that's, you have to train yourself. It's not a automatic,
Right.
it's the autumn, or it depends on how we were raised, that the automatic is the,
Yeah.
that go, ah,
Right.
yeah, but you have to change
So
it.
that unskillful, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you look around, I mean, people and their role models, mentors, I mean, take a look.
Yeah.
Not everybody has somebody who's shown them how to be in a relationship.
Right.
How to do that. What are you going to say?
Right. I was going to say my husband and I, he came from the loud family and I came from the quiet family. Nobody ever spoke about anything. He came from the family where there was a lot of, it was very loud and there was a lot of yelling. And so we came together not having any idea how do you do that? How do you, and so we've had to, and we continue to have to learn each other and remember, oh yeah, that's right. And what is that? I can't remember what the number, there's a certain, I don't know, is it like 8, you have to hear 8 positives to make up for 2 negatives or something
Maybe, I
like
don't know.
that. It's a lot.
I remember when I was first dating my husband and we were going to get married, and he said to me, I'm going to stretch you physically and you're going to stretch me emotionally. And if that wasn't the truth, because he would have me like stringing from a rooftop and I will have him crying.
Right.
I will have, how did you feel about that?
I can totally see that. Yeah, you'd have to.
So believe it or not, we're at the time, right, this moment where I want you to tell everybody. So you have put all of this into like something good. I mean, you put this into a lot of good. Let me correct myself. You
Yeah.
put this into a lot of good, but your work-wise. Tell everybody what you do.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a life coach. I'm a life mastery consultant, and I work with moms.
In particular.
That comes from my realization that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, your kids are they're it's almost like osmosis that they are getting from you. How you're being, they're learning how to navigate life through you. So it's so incredibly important to show them how to do it, show them how to experience joy, show them how to have a relationship with their father or with another person, even when they're exhibiting unskillful behavior and all of the possibilities. So yeah, I get to.
And how do they find you?
Teach other people. www.onefootup.com.
And 1 foot up means what?
It means 1 foot up at a time. We don't go from A to Z. We have to, it's kind of that, I talk about the ever upward spiral of becoming, and as you grow, and that's my number one core value is growth. I have to be growing. And, you may do all this forgiveness and then you're here. This thing may come up again, but you see it from a different perspective. Right. So you're always moving up and up and up. Right. And that's 1 foot up. You're going, you don't go from A to Z.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very important. Okay. So now, you have that, my picture. Here's my new picture with my 4 books.
Yay!
Well, 3 are published. 1 is soon to be published. So we have In Just One Afternoon Listening to the Hearts of Men, all about men sharing their emotional journey, awakening, the guidance that they have learned through their stuff that they are teaching. Then it's In Just One Afternoon Listening to the Hearts of Twins. And twins are a phenomenal role model for everything relationship, parenting, sibling rivalry, conflict resolution, and then millennials, which is the newest one. In Just One Afternoon Listening to the Hearts of Millennials, soon to be joined by In Just One Afternoon Listening into the Hearts of People Impacted by Opioid Addiction. So my 3 books are up on Amazon, and opioid addiction will be there soon, but it's really something. So, final words, what would you say? It's summing this whole thing up.
I would have to say it's never too late. All things are possible. And that we are love. That's what we are. We kind of get clouded over.
When it's messy.
Yeah, even when it's messy, that's what we are. Yeah, that's about it.
And we all have an opportunity to practice messy.
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
Every day.
Every day. And there's a difference when you're practicing messy consciously than when you might be doing it unconsciously.
Mhm.
Because when you are conscious about your messy love, it is more than okay to turn around and go, "Oops,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said it that way. I could have said it this way. Maybe I could do it this way. Maybe I need to say I'm sorry. It's time for a new text. It's time for a new email.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a phone message. Maybe it's just a little gift. Maybe it's something that you can do to consciously shift whatever it is into a little bit more love. What were you going to say? I'm
I'm
not.
going to read from the chat.
Okay.
Elizabeth is saying, she said a few things. She said about you, she's strong, amazing person. I have learned so much from her. And now she's saying, just wanted to say thank you to Tracy for sharing her experience and teaching others so much. I am so thankful for all I have learned. And thank you, Marilyn, for sharing such great stories.
And thank you, Elizabeth.
Great
Thank
show.
you.
She said.
Yeah, I love these stories. We often have, we can have this author on, we could have this famous person on, we can have all these things on, but these stories are so important because this is where we all meet around the fireplace.
Mhm.
And because I'm sure a lot of you out there can have, sit back and go, yeah, that's my story too, or that's a piece of my story or whatever. But the overall context of what we're talking about is everybody's thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's the love that comes out messy. Don't stop.
Mhm.
Let it keep on coming out messy, right?
Right.
Let
right.
it, right?
Yeah.
Keep coming out messy because like Tracy yesterday, you'll have a day where you're sitting around the table with your father and your mother for the first time
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
years.
That was a realization. Oh, wow. Look at us.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know what's happening along the way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you turn around and go, wow,
Mhm.
look what I was just a part of. Look what just went on for me.
Right.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
And we all have that opportunity, and it could be with anybody.
Mhm.
Fathers, mothers, children, friends, old friends. I have my very best friend from college. And her story is going to be in my opioid book.
Mhm.
And I thought for years she didn't like me anymore.
Mhm.
And I come to find out that it wasn't that. It was somebody in her life
Mhm.
that was pulling her away from me. And I was her maid of honor at her wedding.
It's those realizations that, we tell ourselves stories. The mind has to have stories, so the reason.
To
And
permission to pull away.
Yeah.
So here's another. So in closing, I would say, like with my friend, I kept feeling her. All of a sudden, after like 10 years of not speaking, her name, her face, things that we did together growing up. I mean, we did a lot of things together from college on. That I kept feeling her.
Mhm.
And then one day I found her, and it wasn't easy. I had to use Facebook to find her. And I found her and come to realize what she had been going through. I had no idea.
Right.
No idea. And now she's, we're back in each other's lives again.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. So, I think the opportunity is there for each of us to reach out. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, you'll realize you remember somebody that you haven't been in touch with in a long time. Maybe this show today will, inspire you to go do that.
I hope so.
Yeah, it would be really great.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, let us know and we'll have you on the show. I'm not. Well, it is a hallelujah moment.
It is.
These are hallelujah moments, regardless of who they are. They're just, we teach our children different things. This is like the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is love. So thank you all for being here, Tracy. I love Tracy.
Thank you, Marilyn. I love you.
I love you too. I love all of you out there. Thanks for being here today and hearing Tracy's story.
And thank you. Thank you, Amnon.
And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.